This particular video is going to be about looking into the use of Canva brand kits because I'm doing more and more retrospectives after my agent teams create things, and I want to use Canva, but it to be on brand for public consumption. I'm doing executive summaries so my agent teams can report back to me the work which they've done, and then also I can take those findings and create a publicly facing and branded presentation that I can post on LinkedIn as a carousel or an embedded PDF in my posts. And not only do I need to be able to do my own brand, but also leverage the brands of AI tools such as ChatGPT or Claude and Anthropic, and even some of the recent work I've done where I've been investigating what Salesforce is doing with Slack and Mr. Beast for their Super Bowl giveaway. So I need the ability to do multiple brands. This is accomplishing several things for me. What I'm trying to do is spawn 4 different teams or agent teams. What it's going to do is read 8 specification documents, that being 4 agent team requirement documents or ATRDs, plus 4 deployment guides that define a brand kit product suite, spawn a team of 4 AI agents that build 4 production tools simultaneously in parallel, and then spawn a QA team that validates every file, tests cross-tool integration, writes a test report, and then spawn a summary agent that writes an executive build report with state, architecture decisions, and next steps, and then spawn a Canva agent that creates a LinkedIn carousel presentation about the build, design, generated, and saved to your Canva account. Here's what gets built, detailed, and then the output directory. And in some of these earlier iterations, there were some pretty good-looking Canva presentations, but then they fell off the cliff. And that was because I was trying to get Claude Code to create brand kits inside of Canva. And I didn't have a brand kit inside of Canva. I needed to create that first inside of Canva, so it was a lesson learned. I find that the presentations there are more agentic in nature, and you can do a lot with Canva. And Claude can hand off to Canva to use its AI to create styles. And in here, it determined that what went wrong, I selected all the text in the terminal. I'm going to paste it in here, but before I do that, I'm going to ask it to analyze this Claude Code session and identify the learnings and the key takeaways, my assumptions, the things I was incorrect about, and even just approaching this, backing into Canva through Claude Code, finding how to do this the most effective way, which would be to work on the Canva side to create your necessary brand kits, and then on the Claude Code side to build out those agent teams to then be spawned and to create those presentations and leveraging those existing brand kits rather than trying to get Claude Code to back into Canva and try and create the brand kits. Somewhere in this session is where I asked Claude Code why the Canva presentation quality fell off the cliff. It identified that issue, and so I'm going to prompt in here asking it to analyze this session and create a presentation of key takeaways of how to effectively build multiple brand kits inside of Canva and then leverage them in Claude Code. In my prompt, what I'm asking for is for Claude to analyze this session from Claude Code and identify key takeaways and false assumptions on my part and determine recommended best practices for letting Canva do what it does best, and likewise for Claude Code, so as to reach the end goal of having multiple Canva brand kits to then leverage and call upon from Claude Code or Claude Coworker, Claude AI, and write a skill for this and update system memory and give me a Canva presentation with 4 style options of these findings so I can assess and understand best approach moving forward and then share with others. And so then I start dumping that session from Claude Code in here. This is that entire session that I had inside of Claude Code, just going through it real quick. And you see there's a lot of back and forth, but I wanted to go through and glean the lessons learned and the assumptions on my part and why the quality fell off the cliff. I've got Opus 4.6 selected. I'm in and have selected my working folder. I'm inside of Cowork, and on my local machine on my hard drive, I have a safe folder that I let Cowork work in. It's called Cowork, so I can remember it. You can add other files or connectors and more. And you could include a project or add files and photos, bring in connectors. I've got a lot of different connectors here. You notice that Canva is connected. And then I've got several more connectors, and you can also pull in different plugins. But I'm just going to leave it at that and say, let's go. And then it's going to take a while to think about this. What I like about Cowork is it shows the progress, and also will start to list out the to-do list. I'm inside the desktop app for Claude on my Mac Studio, and it's got an M1 chip, so Cowork works on there. Windows also supports Cowork, which is a nice addition. And there's also some sidebars around context. So we've got the context side, we've got the Cowork instructions, the Claude.md, and then the progress. And here are the different things in tracking the progress as to what all is going on. As it's reasoning and it's adding more context, it's pulling in context snapshots. And so here are some instructions. We've got the scratch pad. We've got information around the full autonomous build. That was mentioned in that separate Claude Code session. And so in our progress, you can track and see what it's doing and it's thinking. And so for me, this is where I really like Cowork, is that true bridge between the chat side and the code side. And Claude Code, sometimes there's things where I want to bounce into Cowork in order to help it to assess. And this is a general use case that's a real world workflow scenario in my own personal workflow that I am needing personally, because it helps me to understand and digest what has just occurred and to appreciate the magnitude of work that teams can do. And this is a recent addition from Team Anthropic in their Claude AI tools, is this ability to generate teams and have them do work at the same time. The progress is now updating the system memory so you can see what it's doing, but it's also saying, okay, now let me check for the ATRD files, and that's what I was referring to from the session, and look at the existing brand kit work. So now it has the full picture. Now let me do the deep analysis, write the skill, update memory, and create the presentation. Let me work through this systematically. And you may see the progress, and then this section here, update, and the scratch pad, and more connectors and context, but now it's connecting to Canva. And so now let me check your brand kits and create the Canva presentation. I've not done much for my brand kit. And so saying you have one brand kit available, let me generate the presentation with 4 style options. Since I want to demonstrate the correct workflow, I'll use the outline review flow. And so here is that suggested flow, the quality cliff nobody talks about. So it's figuring out, and this is on the Claude side, but also working in conjunction with Canva, trying to discern through all of this data that it's ingesting through that session from the terminal previously in Claude Code, and pulling out the needles in the haystack here, the quality cliff nobody talks about. When AI meets design tools, quality degrades through a 3-layer compression pipeline. This is coalescing what I actually experienced and explaining it to me what actually happened. We tried creating 32 Canva designs via Claude Code and discovered the hard limits of AI generation. Layer 1, the 90-character wall. Canva MCP enforces 90-character max per slide description, destroying rich content with stats and data. Layer 2, style descriptions are lossy. Hex colors and font specs become text hints that Canva AI interprets loosely, not precisely. There's 8 more pages that you can click on. There are some MCP server timeouts here, but here's the other slides that are being recommended. Before I say generate design, there's these drop downs, and this is using a Canva preview in functionality because of that connector inside of Claude in order to set some different audience settings. And selecting one will start to render that selection. I was hoping I could just view. And those options appear once you hit the 8 more pages. This expands this out, and then we can also see balanced or comprehensive. And then for brand kit, I'm going to select unnamed brand kit, and I think that this is a pretty empty brand kit. I need to go out on the Canvas side, but I'm going to click update, and then it's giving me the prompt based on those selections. Okay, so it has discerned what it is that I've selected, and it's saying please regenerate the outline with these updated parameters by calling the request outline review tool with the following arguments. And so this is structuring what Canva can understand using that connector. The brand kit ID is identified. And so now let me get into Canva. Now I can go into brand, and inside of brand, inside of Canva, I can go into my brand kit, and it is an empty brand kit. So what I want to do is I want to pull in my website information to build my own brand kit. And I think that you can do up to 100 brand kits if you have a Canva Pro account. So it's off to a great start. Continue setup. It's got the one logo, not the best logo to select because it's transparent, but here's the color palette. All right, so I've uploaded a headshot, and this has the background removed of me, and that looks a little Janksville. So I'm going to go into LinkedIn and grab a couple of more assets from my LinkedIn profile. So now I just drag and drop a couple more things for the brand kit. I'm not digging the logo that I have here, and so I'm going to grab other logos kind of manually. So I'm adding another logo here with the colors. This is a pretty small logo. I want to bounce back into Claude Cowork. I have in my prompt the brand kit ID, and so I wanted to be sure that this particular brand kit matched the ID of what I've been working in before I send the prompt. So I've preloaded the prompt and I started working there. I wanted to be sure and improve it a little bit at least so that it didn't produce pure garbage before I burn tokens. And so now what I can do is deploy this. It's going to connect to my Canva account. It's going to look at the brand kit, the logos that I have deployed, make some executive decisions for me and do some styling. And while we wait for that to kind of think things through and determine what it's going to do, here are some recent presentations I've had Claude Code create. And around the ATRD framework, hover over these and see those kind of in action, while I'm also monitoring what's happening here. Canva plus Claude, the right way to bridge content and design. The outline is now in review in the review widget. So let me go full screen here. This is what they're talking about, the review widget. And it gives the first 4, and I can expand out the 13 more pages. I'm just going to trust its taste and its decision making rather than going back and forth and taking up time here. But all 17 slides, comprehensive descriptions, and your brand kit applied. You should see it in the Canva outline review panel. Take a look and hit generate design when you're happy with it, or let me know if you want any slides adjusted. So I'm going to click generate design. What happens there, and this is confusing, is when you click generate design, it issues that prompt once again and details or creates the prompt for you. And it's giving the details as to telling Claude now to please generate the presentation design with the reviewed outline and select these configurations with the following arguments: topic, Canva plus Claude, the right way to bridge content and design. You could always change this here in the prompt. Audience professional, length 15 plus pages, style, brand kit design type, presentation, brand kit ID, and then that is that ID that I had already specified. Slide 1, the quality cliff, and then the descriptions. So now this is feeding prompts to Canva's AI to then go and generate and use its taste profile in order to build presentation options for me. And so this is a real workflow that someone like myself can use and use over and over. So I'm building assets that then I can purposefully reuse and deploy, and then my speed in creating content grows faster, and I can quantify the work that I'm doing, and this can be portfolio work for me and presentations that I could do for either consulting clients or to package up inside of courses. This will make my ability to create slides, but to teach concepts visually much more appealing than what I could do inside of PowerPoint or Canva or whatever tool of choice. And just bear in mind as well that whatever you can do in Canva, a lot you can do in other slide deck type of situations as well. But Canva, to me, really excels in giving you an MCP server and a connector baked into Claude. And so that's why I've fallen into this particular rabbit hole. The generation is timed out, 7th consecutive timeout on Canva's generation endpoint. Let me try once more with a shorter batch to see if Canva service has recovered. And so I may be trying to do too much, so it may be a lesson learned is that I need to do shorter batches and not be so ambitious and then stitch them together. That might be a Claude Code thing, to where I have 3 or 4 or 17 different slides and then have them stitch them together into one slide deck or presentation after the fact. And so here I may have lost my connection. This is another thing. I may need to disconnect and reconnect. But what Claude is trying to do is give me an option or a presentation so I can view the alternate HTML presentation. And this is in the preview pane now. The quality cliff is mimicking, but not nearly as good as what Canva would look like. But this could be something that could be an option if the Canva connection disconnects, and this is a preview of why things are going wrong here. And so one thing that's nice here is what the API can and cannot do. It can do via API list and apply brand kits, but it can't create or modify brand kits. It can edit text in existing designs, but it cannot set specific background colors on generation. It can replace images and fills, but it can't apply CSS level styling control and then more. But so these are guidelines as far as what to do or not do and some of the limitations. Writing paragraphs describing visual style instead of using a brand kit. Text descriptions are lossy. And there's also content and descriptions, cramming full slide content into the 90 character field. Use descriptions for structure and then editing tools for content. Skip the brand kit guarantees inconsistent results. It's the one reliable style control. So you want to reference your brand kit, but not prompt your way there, but leverage the brand kit for what it does best. Then the workflow, create brand kits, test the pipeline, scale it. Want to see AI workflows you can build, and this is a call to action in the end there. And so what I can do, it's saying from this session, tell me, try generating again, and I'll recall, generate design structured with the exact same parameters. And so Claude is trying to do too much, and it's pushing too much in there beyond the limits. And so Canva is trying to get the message to me back via Claude that we're trying to do too much. And so myself, the human at the helm, should have the discernment to realize, okay, this is probably going to time out and fail again. And so I need to take a different approach with Claude and basically tell it what we're finding, like telling it to inspect that presentation that it did in HTML. That is Canva's message to you that we're trying to do too much with too little space. 90 characters is not a lot. So leverage the brand kit and just take it a slide at a time. And so let's just create one, and then we can then do a chain of thought prompt or a prompt chain and do slide 2 and then slide 3. But doing the back and forth, because it can update existing slides and add new slides. Now I'm getting ready to really find a reason for and a use case for my agent team requirements document, or ATRD. This is a framework that I've been developing, and it's for situations just like this. There's some acronyms that I'm using here that may not make sense. There's this phrase COT with this O in the middle, lowercase, and that's a chain of thought prompt. And chain of thought prompting is where you go back and forth with an AI and reason together. And this way it gives its response, and then it comes back and we do the next. And so it's going to be this back and forth dance between Canva and Claude, and doing this inside of Claude Code. I'm going to do this inside of the Code tab, inside the desktop app, so as to not spin up a terminal, to give you a more visual representation of this. But what I'm asking here, I'm telling or trying to clue in Claude that it needs to inspect the actual HTML preview. The payload that Canva sent back was its cry for help, basically saying in so many words, especially on slide 9, as to what it can and can't do, bearing in mind the limitations. I'm going to tell it to reference slide 9 of the HTML preview and slide 10 for some of the recommendations. Rather than leaving it to me to have to do this manually, I'm going to offload this to an agent team and leverage the requirements document framework around that. I'm telling Claude to inspect the HTML preview. It is saying to leverage the brand kit and respect the 90 character limit. See specifically page 9 and 10 of the HTML preview and the problems of overgeneration, which I'm referring to this right here, and content in descriptions and the problem of skipping the brand kit. I think our prompt is too large and we are trying to one-shot the entire presentation, and that was that 17 slide prompt, and so it's a wall of text, and it can't handle that because Canva is limiting that which it ingests at one time. It is really trying to focus on a tighter focus. We need to chain of thought prompt this back and forth with Canva, so structure and condense down your series of prompts and give me an agent team requirements doc, ATRD, and it knows what that is because I've got skills saved to my Claude instance here. What I want is not for it to go to Canva right now, but to give me an agent team requirements document that then I can go over to the code tab and just paste it in, and it spawns a team, a swarm of agents to create those prompts and to hit Canva and to piece together this presentation, or worst case scenario, give it to me as separate PDFs that then could be stitched together. I would like to be able to have this all in one presentation, but if we hit limits, I'm fine with individual one-page presentations that then Claude Code agent teams could coordinate to create as a singular presentation. Once again, using Opus 4.6, going to send that. I'm going to close this preview side. and get back to the progress side of things and the different sidebars in order to watch it do its thing. And so now it's acknowledging, and this is a good example, real world scenario of where human taste comes into play and experience and knowledge, and the skills that you've attained over time are not just thrown out the window. We are the humans at the helm, and so AI can and will lead us astray. So we need to be the ones smart enough to discern. And AI is smart, but really focused and can really get distracted. And so it is saying that we are literally violating our own findings, cramming 17 slides of content into one generation call and wondering why it times out. Let me reread the relevant slides and then build this right. So this is where a lot of people say that AI is garbage, is because the failure of imagination, and that is spawned from a fear of the future and of the unknown. And this is why I say to lean into AI before it leans into you. If you quickly dismiss the capabilities and power of AI, it's going to pass you by, because people that are creative, that can reason, that can think logically, that can handle time management, collaboration, communication, the durable skills matter here more than ever. And the coding is left to the agents. And this is another important distinction to make, is that we delegate to agents and then agents escalate to us. And then when something goes wrong or the agents get lost, treat it like a junior employee, because that's what it is. It doesn't have enough experience or time on the clock to do what you can do if you have years of experience in your vertical, in your industry, in your specialty. So don't freak out about AI. Don't worry about it taking over. And I had never really used Canva before. I always had someone else do that for me, and I paid them to do it. But now I am paying by way of my Claude subscription and my Canva Pro subscription. But I have agentic teams in my own workflow in order for me to understand that which is being done, and then also to be able to present that to others and have assets for social media and for courses and for lightning lessons on Maven, or going into paid live cohorts or updates to existing courses. This massive brain dump and experimentation that I'm just recording live, this could fall under the Today I Built brand that my son is doing at todayibuilt.com. That is Evan Wheeler, and he's trying to build different things with AI almost every day. And so he is really the instigator behind that, or the inspiration behind that. And now it's got the full picture, the existing ATRD format, the anti-patterns we violated, and what Canva can actually handle. Let me write this properly. And so now it created, and it's got its own numbering scheme here, and this is because of my own skills that are behind the scenes. And a lot of this, you see the skill.md and the full autonomous build.md. These are markdown files. Canva closed session analysis, the ATRD template, and then this new one that it's creating, the scratch pad of temporal things that's needed to use. And so now I have the full picture, etc. Now let me test the core hypothesis. Does a 5-slide batch with link short actually get through? And so now it's testing with a shorter presentation model, still timing out even with 5 slides. Now it's following the ATRD, retry, logic, try, and unstructured, generate, design. And so this is a stress test of my ATRD frameworks. It's one thing to teach conceptually, but I'm actually going in and pounding it with real-world use cases for things that I need in my own workflows in order to do more with less. And so if it continues to time out, even if it goes down to just 1 slide, I need to check the connection to Canva, but it's saying that it's connected here under the connectors. It is saying that Canva is connected. Now I may hit some Canva limit that I'm unaware of. It may be throttling me. So it just dumped a context snapshot. So what it's saying is that Canva's entire generation pipeline is down. Every generate design and generate design structured call times out regardless of size, type, or complexity. That's 12 consecutive timeouts across this session. Canva is presumably still connected, and so now I can view that agent team requirement document and what the ATRD solves. The core problem was us trying to one-shot a 17-slide presentation, violating our own anti-patterns, content and description, skipping the edit phase, over-generation. The ATRD breaks it into 5 sequential agents across 5 phases. So now I'm going to go over into the code side and hit it with this particular ATRD. Those 5 phases are writer, builder, editor, assembler, and then exporter. Key decision elements: max 5 slides per generation call. Batching prevents timeouts when the API is healthy. two-field content model generation hint, less than 90 characters, structure only versus exact content, unlimited injected via editing tools, 4-tier retry logic, structured, smaller batch, unstructured, fallback to HTML or PowerPoint, and then 3 fallback strategies. Individual one-slide PDFs merged locally, Python PPTX native build, or HTML presentation already proven to work, but not really good looking. And then content manifest JSON passes between all phases, so any agent can pick up where another left off. So this is in a multi-agentic design workflow. When Canva's generation service comes back, you can spin this up with the quick start prompt in section 11 of the ATRD. The batching plus edit approach should handle decks of any size. Now I'd have to go in and find section 11. Here's that quick start execution prompt. I'll go ahead and copy that, and I can go into, and this is telling where to go to find this actual markdown file, and this is the agent team requirement document. The topic says your topic. It should say what the topic is. And so I'm going to push back on this. I'm calling out that this is a garbage placeholder prompt, and I'm saying replace your placeholders with relevant topics and slide number and brief descriptions of content. And what I'm busting it for is it's being lazy here with the topic and the number of slides. It knows what the number of slides need to be, and it can give or generate a brief description of content. And the rest is okay. I want to give Claude Code a one-liner that will accomplish several things. That it can load up the requirements document and the prompt be at the top so it knows what to do with this. And I want to give instructions for it to always just do the work and not ask me for permission, but just do what I need it to do, and then go through this requirements document. And so I've added in the instructions here to update the ATRD with the prompt not being placeholder riddled, but relevant, and at the top so that the agent orchestrator knows what to do with it. Give me a single line to put inside of Claude Code so as to tell it to run the agent team based on the requirements, and to use the dangerously allow all setting so as to not continually nag me for permission. You'll see what I mean by this. I'm going to send this. Here's my one-liner, and this is me being not lazy, but easily annoyed, probably could be the term, because a lot of times AI will tell me to do this, that, and the other. I'm the human at the helm. It should tell me and get it down to a single line and get everything orchestrated so that it knows what is mounted where. It's doing the settings, and this is why I was talking about the Claude dangerously skip permissions. You wouldn't do this in a real world environment, but it's safe to do so if I'm inside of my cowork folder. And then reading documents, cowork agents, ATRD, this ATRD-007 Canva presentation builder, and execute all 5 phases in sequence, and then read this particular skill first for rules, and do not stop until all phases are complete on all fallbacks are exhausted. So now I'm going to toggle over into, once I copy this, go into Claude Code. And so now I'm in my cowork folder where I need to be. There's different sessions you can do, or modes, either ask or code or plan. I'm just going to go straight to code and give it this one singular line. And this will be then doing its thing, spawning an agent team and working through this. So now it's going through and reading the files and saying, so well-structured ATRD, thank you very much. And the takeaway is it's building a 17-slide Canva presentation about Canva plus Claude, the right way to bridge content and design. So this is kind of going full meta or inception. I'm talking about that which I'm actually baking right now. This is how the sausage is made, basically. But I am taking key findings and overcoming limitations and working within the constraints and context of Canva and Claude Code, and baking in some chat and some co-work tab work also. Let me start by setting up the build directory and executing phase 1, which is the writer phase. Updating to-do list, tracking content creation, design phases, now writing the content manifest with all 17 slides across 4 batches. Okay, that is how we get 5, 5, 5, and then 2. And if it fails, it's going to try again, and I can also toggle these and see what it's doing and get the bash codes. Python 3, import OS, given the path there, the directory's created. So it's working on my hard drive on my Mac Studio right now. And what's fascinating about all this, and it's still working and it's thinking and combobulating, as it says, and we'll see it working here, is that with this advent of AI, and now we've got phase 1 writer complete, and now it's marking that off in the to-do list, and now phase 2 generating the canvas in the builder phase is that there's been this move or this hybrid approach where everything was in the cloud, and now there's a lot that is happening locally. And AI is finding that there's a lot to be said for what is available in our compute power locally, and this is on the hardware level. So you're seeing a lot optimized for different processors, and that is fascinating because we have had this pendulum swing to cloud only, and now there's a lot more heading back to the PC level. PC meaning personal computer, whether it's Mac or Windows or Linux or whatever it may be. So now it's mentioning a widget. I think it's thinking that there is a widget here in Claude Code on the desktop. I'm not able to see that. So I'm going to tell it I can't see the widget. And so now it's going to just give me the links that will direct me to the Canva presentations. And so I'm telling I can't see the widget here in Claude Code desktop app, so please give me the links to previewing and stripping punctuation from titles and descriptions for the generate design structure call. And so one thing that I always think about is how long it would take me to do all that code that it just generates. Batch 1 generated successfully 4 candidates produced. Here are your preview links. Open any in your browser to compare. So these are 4 different candidates, 4 different slide links, and that is the starting or one of those 4 batches, okay? Which candidate do you want me to use for batch 1, slides 1 through 5? Pick a number 1 to 4, and I'll save it and move on to generating batch 2. So this is that chain of thought back and forth. I thought it might have to do 17 turns, but I think it can do it in 4. And it's giving me 4 different candidates to choose from for the styling. And they're different slide links because of the Canva AI determined what was needed depending on the style as well. While you review, note the text content in these shells is placeholder. The editor phase will replace it with the exact content from the ATRD. And so it's important to realize here, because this is another stop point where people that are AI resistant and hesitant will say AI stinks. This is style, but not the substance. Think of this as the lorem ipsum Latin representation that clients would always get confused about, where you would give them options for a website design and they would say, this is not what I offer. What is this? Why is this in Latin? And it is nearly impossible for people to separate style versus substance. And so it's trying to tell me, don't freak out, Michael. But we will get to the editor phase. We'll put in the content based on what is in the ATRD, but it's too much to dump on Canva right now. Focus, Michael, focus. All right, I'm speaking to myself here, so I'm opening external link 1. I've got the side-by-side here of the 4 candidates. Candidate 1 is on the right, bridging content and design, and this is 7 slides. It's doing a final bow out, which doesn't need to do, okay? But once again, bear in mind, these are just placeholders, and it's more the style that we want to address, and if we like this. And this is a teachable moment now with visuals helping me to understand the limitations of Claude and Canva and how to deal with Canva's limitations inside of Claude Code, okay? But not have to do it all manually inside of Canva. That is the draw for me, is I don't want to become a Canva expert. I want my agents to become Canva experts, and so I'm building an agent that will be a Canva expert and work within the limitations here. And this is pretty good looking presentation, so now I can peruse this and determine what I like and what I don't. And based on this as well, I can say, okay, replace the headshot with my headshot from my brand kit. Option 2, Canva plus Claude, bridging content and design, and then your name here. So this would be further iterations. I could say, like, replace the placeholder with my name, and the company name is Rapid Reskill. And here's information of the 90-character wall, understanding lossy styles and the text interpretation challenges, and consistent versus inconsistent designs. And this is where AI really falls apart, especially in Canva, is the text generation is kind of garbage and full of typos. So you want to avoid that. That's further training. Here's the 3rd candidate, which this is a little more bland in my book, more like, looks like business cards. Candidate 4, kind of like this one. This one's pretty good looking other than that initial starting point. So I think what I'm going to go with, just at first blush here, is that I want to go with candidate 4, but have or use the initial slide 1 from candidate 2. Here is the taste and the human at the helm deciding that which he or she likes. I like candidate 4, but want the title card from candidate 2 incorporated as far as style. So now I'm going to hit and ask it to continue on. And this is the back and forth dance or the chain of thought or the reasoning together. Good picks. It's always complimentary. Let me save both candidates so I can work with them. So it's saving candidate 2 and 4 and discarding the others. I'll use candidate 4 as the base for batch 1 and pull candidate 2's title slide style as reference for the editor phase. So now it's just peeling away the things that are now considered noise and then going with the signal things of 2 and 4. See the wall of text here, start editing design, and it's pulling in the information both saved. Now let me look at both title slides so I can understand what style elements to carry over from candidate 2's title into candidate 4's design. Now here's a core distinction or constraint. Since the Canva editing tools can replace text but can't swap layout templates between designs, what I can do is edit candidate 4's title slide text to match the exact ATRD content, making it as strong as possible. The visual style differences between 2 and 4 on the title card are mainly layout. 2 has right side image, 4 has centered image. That's baked into Canva's template and can't be swapped via API. Let me cancel the candidate 2 transaction. We only needed it for reference to start working on candidate 4, the base design. I'll also delete the extra page 6. Candidate 4 generated 6 slides. We only need 5. Now let me inject the exact ATRD content into candidate 4. And here's the design ID for reference, the transaction ID. So it is logging, it's like a trace log. I'll start with the title slide and work through all 5 pages plus delete the extra page. And so now it's hitting some constraints, but it's figuring out workarounds and creative ways of solving. So now you can see it work. It's like you're looking over the shoulder of the agent or agent team. And this has really not spawned a team to do its work so much as it's just trying to get through and get the presentation in place. And I think that's one of the constraints of Canva on its side because it is so limited in what it'll allow. It's throttling the ability so as to not get just totally inundated with super prompts. It can't really spawn effectively a multi-agentic swarm on this and be working in parallel, and you take slides 1 through 5 and you take slides 6 through 10, et cetera, et cetera. And here there's a trade-off. This is something that is going to be escalated to human, and also consider how we would not want to reprompt this and burn through the tokens to try to do this again and to have the AI delete this page. It's much easier for me to just delete it after the fact rather than burn 100,000 tokens and then it have some context drift and context rot, and it destroys what we have so far. So it's saying, should I save and commit batch 1 and move on to generating batch 2? I want to confirm before committing since this is the first batch. And so what it's saying is batch 1 summary, all 5 slides with exact ATRD content is now injected. Quality cliff, check. Quality degrades through 3 compression layers, the 90 character wall, and you can preview. Actually, this is not the preview, this is the Canva side. And that is static from what we had before. So let me just go full screen here so as to not confuse things. And so then extra contact page, delete manually in Canva. And so this is the human at the helm and thinking about token cost as well. So I'm going to say yes to confirm. And so now it's going to start the next batch of slides and continue where it left off. And remember that it's working inside of my documents/cowork folder that's locally on my hard drive as far as what it's writing there, but it's also calling out to the API of Canva. So batch 1 committed, design link, I can open that and preview that. I think I've recorded enough here, and I may chop this up into a series, but I feel like I need to get a new source recording going. Let me stop here.